Get a Job in Tech, episode 128. I'm here with Terry Huckleberry. Terry is an IT guy, and like me, he's been all over the world doing the IT thing. So, Terry, tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I'm 59 years old. I've been married to my wife for since 1991. Met her in Saudi Arabia. I grew up in Oklahoma on a ranch in Oklahoma. My family owns kind of a ranch, not farmers, we're more ranchers, grow cattle. Dad was always a cattleman, born in 1961, graduated from Conowall High School in 1979. Played football, didn't like basketball, graduated in 79, went to Oklahoma State. Was there for 5 years. Graduated with a geology degree, business minor after 4.5 years, and then started working on a master's and MBA, concentration in finance. But I wanted real world experience. So in 1984, after 5 years, I went to San Antonio, and my brother was down there doing some stuff, and I wanted to get out of Oklahoma. Been there my whole life, had a little bit of wanderlust, still do. And so I went down there for 5 or 6 years, and that's when I got into IT, and my brother was an IT professional. And then I went to New York City, Saudi Arabia, just kind of bounced around wherever the job's at. A lot of consulting, a lot of implementations, and now I do a lot of DoD work, going around installing switches, and usually on the fiber side, just trying to make wherever I go and whoever hires me make their shop just a little bit better. But I'm here in Colorado Springs right now, and so here I am.
So tell me about what you said, wanderlust. What does that mean, wanderlust?
I kind of see the grass is greener somewhere else. So when I left Oklahoma, and I go back to Oklahoma, I do periodically. After 2 or 3 days, I remember why I left in the first place. But when I go back, there's always somebody, some of my friends or people I graduated with, they're still there. They may be moved to the next city, or maybe moved to Oklahoma City. My hometown's around 60, 65 miles from Oklahoma City. And, they're happy there. But that was just not the life for me. There was a world out there. And I wanted to go see it. I had one of my old coaches a couple of years ago. He's 12 years older than me, a great guy. And we were talking, and he lived in like a 65, 70 square mile area his whole life. Grew up in a town, went to a local college, and then he became a football coach, and that just wasn't for me. When I was growing up, I was reading all this stuff, all these places I wanted to go see. And so wanderlust to me is you're just wondering, the next country, wondering about the world, just lusting to see after it, just to see what you can see. And so I've lived in 12 states, lived in, Saudi Arabia for 2 years. My wife was from the Philippines, so we visited there, often. And, but it's always that wonder, just you want to see the world and see what it's about, meet the different cultures, and really get a flavor of what the culture is about. Just don't go visit it for 2 or 3 days, and you're not really seeing it and experiencing it. To me, wanderlust is going and actually experiencing the culture, because there's a lot of good cultures out there. Our culture, which I'm an American, I think ours is the best for us, but our culture is not the best for other people.
So you mentioned your wife is from the Philippines. Tell me about the Philippines. What is this Philippines? What's it like there?
Oh, I love the Philippines. I've studied it, and have a bunch of friends that are from there. Of course, in the DoD, Department of Defense, there's a ton of Filipinos. Everywhere I've worked, there's a ton of Filipinos. A lot of them join the armed services, and that's one way they can get citizenship pretty quickly. And so they'll come over here, and and they'll be in the whichever branch that they pick. But then they either retire. A lot of them are retired military, and then they go off and they work for the DoD. They already have the top secret clearances and what have you. But so I've studied the culture. I've studied the history. But the Philippines is, it's been closely associated with the United States since 1898 when we fought Spain. And of course, that was Philippines was a colony of Spain. And then, of course, we took it over. And there's 3 or 4 years of the Philippine insurrection where just trying to get rid of us. And of course, we gave them their independence, in June of 1945 after they helped us in World War II. But there's a long history of the relationship between America and the Philippines. And so I've studied it. I sent my daughter over there to school. She was actually going to school here in Colorado Springs. She's a nurse, but she was started out to be a nurse here, going to a local junior college, Pikes Peak Community College, grade school. Nothing against Pikes Peak, but the rate she was going, usually go 2 or 3 years at a junior college, get your AA, and then you can test for the RN, the NCLEX RN. And once you pass, then you get a job. But then you can go on and get your BSN RN from a 4-year school, which is people usually go to UCCS here in Colorado Springs, University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. Well, the process, and then how long you go and how many courses you take, how many hours you take per semester, it could take 6 or 7 years. So in 2015, we decided to send her to the Philippines because it's more clear-cut. She wouldn't have to work. She was working here 15, 20 hours a week. But we sent her over to the Philippines, and she didn't have to work. I was supporting her. And so she went to a place called Iloilo. So, the Philippines is a lot closer to the equator. It's a lot warmer. We visited her often. So she was over there for around 4.5 years. October of 2015, I think it was, October 4th, as I recall. And she came back in July of this year after the Philippines opened up a little bit because of the virus. But it's a great country. There's a lot of good people. Now, anywhere you go, there's some places you don't want to go to, and there's some places that don't like Americans. So we have like an 88% approval rating. Americans and America does with the Philippines. They have surveys every now and then. I think the last survey I saw, which was a few years ago, was 88% approval rating from the Filipinos. So they like us over there. And my daughter, she never had any issues. Iloilo is like 450,000 people. I did not want to send her to Manila. Manila, there's a little bit dicey in Manila. Cebu's the second biggest city, and I really didn't want to send her there either. But Iloilo was big enough, yet not too big, and it's right in the middle of the country, and right in the middle of the country is the most peaceful. They used to have some communist insurgents way north Luzon, and they had the Muslims down south, and so we kind of wanted to stay away from those areas. Iloilo is certainly more peaceful, and she never had any issues, and so that's where we sent her. But I just think a lot about the Philippines. I just love the people. They've always good to me. I've got numerous friends from my days working in Saudi Arabia. When I met my wife, and back in 91, 92, actually I think like December of 91, but I worked with a lot of Filipinos at Saudi Telecom, and I'm still buddies with some of those guys today, 30 years later. One of the guys actually introduced me to my wife. But I just have nothing but good things about the Philippines. By far, overall, it's such a good country with really good people.
You mentioned sending your daughter to the Philippines for college. What's the breakdown cost wise? Can you go into a little bit about that? How it is different than the States? Obviously in that regard, you probably didn't do it. She did it, but maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
I talk about that a whole lot. March of 2015. I just got out of a seminar with Pikes Peak Community College. Daughter and I went, and um, they laid out kind of the progression, the start to finish, to get your RN, your become a nurse and a BSN RN. In my opinion, okay, when you start here, if you start at a junior college, there's some benefits by doing that. You go to say 3 years, 3.5 years, and you get an AA, Associates of Arts, and it's you get the AARN, and you then go and to a 4-year college, you get your BSN RN. It takes another 3 years, give or take. So you're looking at 5.5, 6 years, depending on how much you want to, how many hours you want to take per semester. And the cost was around $2,000 a semester. The last semester that we paid for was 2015, the spring semester. And it wasn't so much and this is kind of what got me thinking. There's some opportunity grants that Colorado gives you if you go to school. The tuition would have been around $3,000 because of this grant. It was a Colorado Opportunity Grant, as I recall. Well, this grant would lower it by $1,000, so you're talking around $2,000. Yeah, and that was okay. I have an education fund set up for it. But the thing that sort of got me was she didn't know the classes she was going to take, so she waited on enrolling, and because she waited, she went to the bookstore and all the used books were gone. So she had to buy completely new books, and those books cost between $800 and $900. Let's say $850, give or take. Now I started college in '79, and to me, an expensive book was $20. And a lot of times I'd buy my books, and they were, for the whole semester, they were $60, $70. A new book, hardback, was $20, $25. But she bought, I don't know, 3 or 4 books, whatever it was, and it was $850. So that also got me thinking, Jiminy Christmas, $850, and the $2,000 wasn't bad. The tuition. So we started looking into maybe the Philippines as an alternative. And her mom is a nurse, went to Iligan Medical Center, which is down North Mindanao, which is the southernmost island, or the biggest southernmost island. And so we actually have a house in Iligan, but I didn't want her to go there. I wanted to go one of the big universities. And so we started looking around. We looked at CPU, Central Philippine University. We looked at Silliman University, which is in Dumaguete, which is one island over from Iloilo. We looked at some schools in Manila, but they weren't really high on our list because it's just so crowded in Manila. And I wanted her to go. She wanted a city. I wanted her more rural. So the compromise was Iloilo, which at the time was 375, 400,000 people. And we had relatives that were really close to that city, so I felt good. In fact, my wife's sister actually moved in with her for 2 years until they kind of figured out the ins and outs of Iloilo. But the tuition in the Philippines for one semester going to most schools over there, it's not that cheap. It's not, a couple $100 or $300. It still costs it. It was around $900, $850, $900. As you go and, as you become a sophomore, junior, senior. Junior year was actually more expensive than senior year because you had all these labs. But still, the tuition was probably half of what the tuition is here. And she's going to Pikes Peak Community College. But there are some other costs that you have to factor in. And we actually paid for an apartment for it. It was a townhome. Actually a pretty nice one. Not real big, but that was $250 a month. Now it's around 12,000 pesos, $240, $250 a month. So, there are some added expenses by going over there. The tuition was probably half what you pay here. But the room and board, the uniforms that you got to have. I was actually sending around $1,000 over there a month. Um, and that was their living expenses. That was their wasn't their tuition, that was separate, but that was also their rent, the $250. And then we bought them a car, because really you have to have a car. So, you think the Philippines would be cheaper. And for a lot of people, it is. A lot of Filipinos send their children back there because they already have a house, they already have a homestead, they have relatives back there. And so, really, there's no rent that they have to pay. They already have a house. Really, all they have to pay is just the tuition for the college and any incidentals that you might incur. A lot of Filipinos, I don't know why, some do, but a very small fraction, they don't like to travel that much. And so my daughter, she's got wanderlust too. She got it from me. So she went, she went to Japan, Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, a lot of history, especially Vietnam. Oh, she saw a lot of history. The tunnels and used to be Saigon, now it's Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi. There's some places in Hanoi, Hilton. Anybody knows anything about the Vietnam War? So she traveled a lot, but most Filipinos do not do that. They just more homebodies, I guess. But while my daughter was over there, I wanted to see stuff. So that was an added expense. And that we really didn't have to incur. But she went to Hong Kong once too before the riots, which was a good thing. But the good thing about the Philippines, and one thing that I like about it, in Asia, it's about as centrally located as you can get. And anywhere you want to go is usually around $250 to $300 round trip. The one exception I think was Tokyo, and that was over $600 round trip for one person. But that's pretty far north. She didn't go to South Korea, but she did go to Tokyo, saw Mount Suribachi, I think it is Suribachi, and it was on a clear day, and which was rare. But that was $600 something. Thailand was $250, $300. Vietnam, and then she traveled, Laos and Cambodia, Thailand, Bangkok was, $250, $300. So that's always extra. But as far as tuition was cheaper. But I wanted her to go and see this is part of an education. There's another reason I wanted her to go over there and not stay here at university at the Pikes Peak Community College. She was meeting people from Denver, and actually she knew a lot of people from class from her high school. She graduated from Rampart High School here in North Colorado Springs. 600 people was in the graduating class. Well, she knew a bunch of people going to Pikes Peak, but was she really experiencing life? Was she really getting a college education or a college experience? She's getting a college education. Good facilities, don't get me wrong. Pikes Peak was a good school. UCCS is a very good school, but she's missing that college experience. I went to Oklahoma State, and some of the best times was just meeting different people from different countries. Oklahoma State had a great agricultural school, and a lot of my buddies was in the ag department, and so we had people from Afghanistan. I remember talking to a guy from Afghanistan, this before the Russians invaded, and he was telling me about Afghanistan, how such a good country it was. And so I got all this experience talking to other people. And my daughter was not getting that cultural exposure here where she was getting it in the Philippines. She had buddies from China. She had buddies from Korea. She was vice president of the international club, which included a lot of people from Korea. A lot of people from Korea go to CPU and go to the Philippines because of the English exposure. There's nobody speaks English better than the Philippines in Asia. It's an official language of the Philippines, Tagalog being the other one, which is a native language, and then English being the other official language. There's around 4,000 students from Korea, South Korea, going to the Philippines and learn English. I don't know if all you guys know this, but in South Korea, it's almost a religion to learn and be good at English. And so a lot of people go to CPU and go to uh, other colleges in the Philippines to learn and perfect their English. So she knew a lot of people from South Korea. Uh, she knew a bunch of people from England. Almost everybody, and of course, a lot of Philams, they're called Philams over there, from America. Now, most people, most parents of these Philams were, they were Filipino. Well, one parent was Filipino. So usually there is a connection there. Usually one of the parents there is a connection. Um, but the exposure, the cultural exposure that she experienced was just far exceeded our expectations. But as far as cost, I know you asked cost earlier. Tuition is cheaper, but only about half. And there are these other incidentals. You don't have to do the travel, but there are uniforms you have to buy because they're real big on uniforms. And, and as you progress through the nursing ranks, get to be a junior and senior, there's different uniforms you have to buy. And then there's just a normal day-to-day life that you have to pay for. And of course, it is much cheaper over there, but there are some stuff you have to pay for that bumps it up. But by far, it far exceeded our expectations. Does that answer your question, Gary?
Yeah, very much so. So tell me about internet over there. I'm really curious about that. What's the internet like over there in the Philippines?
Oh, that's a good question. There's actually two main internet providers in the Philippines. There's Globe and there's Smart. And I read something a few years ago as we were researching this. The first internet provider she had wasn't worth a darn. I'm not going to tell you which one it is, but it was one of the two I just mentioned. And so she bought it, and she had outages, had glitches, and so after around a year and a half, because she thought maybe it was normal, maybe 2 years, she went to the other one. And with the first one, she started out at a certain package, and then she increased the package, and trying to get it to work. Because we'd be talking, and then boom, we had these intermediate outages. Well, she went to the other one, okay, and then that worked out okay for a while. But she actually finally went to an off-brand, as I recall, and that one maybe they thought they needed to do better than the other two, because the other two were so bad. And that actually worked out real well, but she was actually paying around 2,000 pesos a month, which is actually quite a bit of money over there just for internet. But when Duterte, who's the president of the United States, thinking about Trump here, Duterte, who's the president of the Philippines, who was elected in 2016, May of 2016, as I recall. And of course, it's a 6-year term. His term ends in May of 2022. But one of his goals when he became president was he wanted to get the internet service better than what it is right now, or at least at that point in time. And so that was one of his platform items. He's going to get, because a lot of businesses were griping. The internet was so poor over there, and the internet was getting to be such a big big piece of the business. You got to have internet anymore, advertise and sell your products. A lot of people are griping because the internet service was so poor. And Globe and Smart had 2/3. They had almost 70% of the market, the business in the Philippines of internet providing. And so he ran on that. And so, but then after I read somewhere a few years later that he didn't really push it when he got it into office. So my daughter finally found a provider that was good and reliable. But the other one or two, and I'm going to tell you which one. My advice would be to just keep trying, because there are some good internet service providers. but it might be, you're going to spend a lot more than what you thought you'd have to spend. She was paying around 2,200 pesos, which is around $40, which in the Philippines, just for internet services, it's quite a lot uh, to get good quality service. So I'm telling you, the first 3 years or so, we'd be talking and it'd be sketchy, and then we'd drop. She'd call me back, I'd call her back, and 9 times out of 100, it was on her side. And but we mucked through, and my advice is just to keep trying, because there are some good service providers, um, but you might have to spend more than what you. Because there are some platforms, there are some levels, and the higher level you get, the better it is. And so that's where you might have to go to get the quality service that you expect, especially being from here. And I have problems every now and then, but for the most part, my internet service here is pretty solid. Um, that answer your question, big guy?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way, man. The internet is a gotta have it. 100% gotta have it.
Gotta have it.
I'll pay whatever it costs for internet. Like, and if the power goes out, uh, the first thing I think is I don't have internet. I mean, yeah, I get it. I don't have power, but I don't have internet. That's probably more important.
Yeah. Well, in the Philippines, it's important here, but you can call somebody. Cost sometimes to make a phone call is sometimes prohibited in the Philippines. I mean, you have calling cards, and that makes things cheaper. But that link back to the States, that link to your buddies back here, if you're visiting or if you're living over there, it's vital. And with my daughter, boy, she gets so frustrated. She depended on, and even the research that you still have to do research. That's why I liked it, but they were hard on them. That CPU, which she graduated in April, they kicked their rear end sometimes. They were hard on, but she depended on the internet to do research. She had to have that internet, and for it to be flaky a lot of times, it just bugged the heck out of her.
Yeah, I know that much. 100%. I get it. What's the food like there? I don't know if you know, but what's the food like there? Are there shopping malls? Can you go to places? Is there McDonald's? All that type of stuff there?
Okay. Oh man. Okay. So I met my wife in Saudi Arabia back in 90. I want to say December 21st of 91. And our first date was December 26th of 91. And we got married in 92. Now, I have a point, bear with me here, and it's concerning McDonald's. So we got married in May 7th of 92. And then a year and a half later, in August 7th, I traveled to the Philippines after my wife had already gone back to the Philippines. And we got married August 7th. Now, I was there for 2 months. And in that time, we had to go to classes to get married. We had to get the marriage license. We had to get a certificate saying I could get married from the American Embassy, not the consulate, but the embassy in Manila. So I get all that stuff, and we're getting everything. Well, after a couple of 3 weeks okay, so one of the best times of my life, now we're talking about this. One of the best times of my life, I fly into Manila. We stayed 2 or 3 days in Manila, really close to the American Embassy. And so we go over there. We have to get this release saying yes, Terry's not married and he can get married. And you have to have it before they'll. It's kind of before everything was computerized. I got it too, but it took a day or two to get it. So we then travel on a super ferry, 2 nights and 3 days. We actually, first time I was in Iloilo, we stopped in Iloilo, and then the third day we docked in Cagayan, which is 90 kilometers from Iligan City, which is North Mindanao. So we leave Cagayan, we go to Iligan. I'm there for 2 or 3 weeks. I hadn't seen an American in weeks. Man, I get hungry for McDonald's. Hadn't had McDonald's. We didn't have it in Saudi Arabia. We had some other good stuff, but we didn't have McDonald's. So one day, my wife and I, we go from Iligan, and we'd take a bus to Cogandoro, 90 kilometers, 60 miles up the road, 54 miles up the road, and we go to this McDonald's. And the food was the same, good or bad. The thing I like about McDonald's is it's the same. No matter where you go in the world, you get a Big Mac, you get a Big Mac. Well, I go over there and I get it's either a quarter pounder with cheese or probably a Big Mac. But what I remember is you get McRice. So they sold rice separately, and I guess you could order fries. I didn't because I wanted McRice because I wanted to experience it. So the food's a little bit different, but back then we had to go 90 kilometers to get a Big Mac. That I was craving. Oh, I had to have it. So we took darn near all day to go over there, eat it. We had to get to the place because away from the bus station, come back, but it was well worth it. And I ate McRice. So things have progressed. Fast forward 20 years. Okay? So my daughter goes to Iloilo in October 4th, as I recall, 2015. And they had 4 McDonald's in Iloilo. Now they're more pricey than the regular meals. Regular like Jollibee's a real big fast food uh, place that a lot of Filipinos like. It's it's burgers, it's fried chicken, but Jollibee's, and you can go to a Jollibee's and for $3, two and a half, $3, you can get a meal, you can get breakfast, you can get lunch, dinner. Well, at McDonald's, it's a little bit pricier. It's 253. It's $5 to $6. To get a hamburger, get fries or McRice or what have you. Now, my daughter paid it, because sometimes she just wanted a slice of home, and so she'd go to McDonald's and she'd go. There used to be a Subway in Iloilo. Now there still is one in Manila and Cebu. And there's even one in the Manila airport, the Aquino International Airport. There's a Subway in the airport, but there used to be one there, but it closed up. Now there's Starbucks. You can go and coffee shop and have coffee. They have internet. A lot of students go to Starbucks or other internet cafes because it's quiet. You can get away from the house. They have an internet connection. Just got to buy a coffee every now and then. So there's used to be Subway, but in Iloilo there's not anymore. There's Burger Kings. There used to be one, but now I think there's like 3. There's 4 McDonald's. One of the things I always like, you remember Shakey's Pizza? Sharky's or Shakey's Pizza?
Shakey's. I'm not sure.
Shakey's? Well, so Shakey used to be one that I went to school at Oklahoma State. I got me on a roll here, Gary. Shakey used to be in Oklahoma State, at Stillwater, Oklahoma, and heck, it closed down in probably 80 or 81. So I go to the Philippines, and in Boracay, there's a Shakey's. In Iligan City, there's a Shakey's Pizza. So there's pizza places around that, like Shakey's, that are, as far as I know, they're gone here in the States, but they're still over there, which I thought was kind of interesting. Some of the older American restaurants made it over there, and then they just stayed. Jollibee's put a lot of them out of business, though, because very, very popular. And we used to eat at a Jollibee's there in Stockton and San Francisco and Burlingame and in LA. And there's even one in Houston we ate at. So they're around. But that's hurt a lot of the other restaurants. But the food is, if you want to eat American, you can eat American. Or you could, and my daughter liked these other kind of more mom and pop shops that actually had more of the native food. What I never have tried is what's the name of that egg? It's a half formed embryo, balut. Okay, so I have never tried balut, even though I have some friends that have. But it's a half-formed embryo, and very nutritious, very, very tasty, I hear. I never could eat it. So that's one of those native things. There's only 2 things I think I haven't tried. One of them is balut. The other one is a Bloody Mary, which is a kind of a concoction of the internal organs, and my wife loves it, and my daughter loves it. My daughter likes both the balut and the Bloody Mary, but she started young. I was an old fogey when I, started kind of dipping into the food of the Philippines. I can't eat it. Well, my daughter can, and she says it's delicious. And even, uh, the fish, the fried fish, and not fried fish, but there's a different name for it, but the one that smells so bad. But it's supposed to be delicious. Then my daughter raves about it. My wife raves about it. Um, but boy, it does smell a little bit. But it's supposed to be really, really tasty. But um, in the Philippines, if you want American food, because America has, we're business minded. When a market opens up, especially the Philippines, since we've had such a long history with them, uh, American companies move in um, with, of course, a Philippine partner. Um, so if you want American food, it's there. You don't get everything that we have here, but you get a lot. But I would advise you to eat Filipino food to really sample, the local culture, because they, besides Bloody Mary, they have pancit, which is kind of a noodle, which is just awesome. Chicken adobo, which is to die for. There's uh, some other adobo dishes that I swear are just tremendous. And my mouth's watering right now. And there's some really, really good Native American food. I don't know, that kind of answer your question, Gary.
Yeah. What about the malls? Do they have malls there?
Oh, okay. So the richest people in the country are mall owners. Okay, so the biggest one in Iloilo, and the guy actually died. Henry Sy was his name. Last name was S.Y. And so he died in January or February of this year. He was 90 something. He was worth 20 billion American. Not 20 million pesos, 20 billion pesos, which is still a lot of money. But the exchange rate right now is 50 pesos to the dollar. He was worth 20 billion American. Uh, in the 1950s, he came over to the States and he was wondering what could he do, because he owned a shoe store over there in Manila. He was originally from China, and so he was Chinese, and he came over here with his wife, looked around, and in the 50s, malls were just springing up everywhere. Of course, now they're dying out. But the first mall was I want to say, Indianapolis in 1955 in America. And he kind of hit it. He came over, saw these malls popping up. He goes back and he puts a mall in. And he did he found out what Filipinos wanted. One of the things they wanted was to sit down, because they was walking all the time. The other thing was they wanted air conditioning. So there's like 3 or 4 things he put in to attract these customers to buy shoes. So he probably has the biggest operation, because he owns some banks, he owns these malls. SM is the malls that he owns, and he started putting them in the 1950s, 1960s. But SM stands for shoe market, and so in Iloilo, the biggest mall, the most popular mall, is SM, and I swear they have an Ace Hardware there. That's another thing, that they have over there that we've sent over there, Ace Hardware. I was kind of disappointed in it, though, because I went to Ace Hardware to get some washers, and I couldn't find any. They didn't have the right size washers for me. I needed to fix up a cabinet for my daughter, so I had to go to the other hardware place, and they had bad parking. But anyway, this SM is the biggest, and that's where he made his money. These SM, the Shoe Mart malls. Now, there's other malls over there too. There's SM. They're probably the biggest, but there's some older ones, like Robinson Mall. There's 2 or 3 Robinson Mall there in Iloilo, an older one, and then a newer one that they built. Those guys knows. And then they have these smaller malls that can't keep popping up because they're so popular. It's not like here with malls are dying out. There, people go there as a meeting place and to buy food, because there's supermarkets, there's hardware stores, there's shoe places, there's banks, there's everything in this mall. And so that's where they go. So because it's harder to get around over there, a lot of people don't have cars, and so that's where they go to kind of take care of all their business. But the three biggest ones that I'm aware of, SCM, which is the biggest, followed by Robinson, been around forever. When I was there in the early 90s, there were Robinson malls that we'd go to, my wife and I. And then, of course, Gasano, that's a mall that was in Iligan City, and they also have them in Iloilo and Manila. Gotta tell you this about the people that work in these malls. Um, you go into a store that they'll have, uh, especially Gasano. Gasano is one I'm actually thinking about in the early 90s, but it still pertains today. They'll have 15, 20 of these young girls working, and they come out. I saw one time when they came out, and they had a shift change. So you had 15 girls leaving, 15 girls coming back. And while there's intermingling, there's 30 girls there, all about the same height, all about the same age. All of them were real slender. All of them were dressed. The one that I saw was all green, dressed in green dresses with green shoes, green ribbons in their hair. And so over there, I guess there's such a big problem with shoplifting because it is a poor country that every aisle has a person that's watching you. So I'm an American. I'm not going to steal anything. I had money, but I'd go down an aisle. I'd have two girls watching me, make sure I didn't steal anything. Because if they did steal something, if I stole something, they'd come out of their check, which they didn't want. So that's kind of their anti-theft, devices to hire these people to keep an eye on you so you don't steal anything. Just thought I'd throw that out. What I observed years ago. S&M is the biggest though, Gary. But Robinson and Gasano, pretty big too. And there's other people getting into the mall. I've noticed in Calibo, when we was up in Calibo, there's a small city mall, is what it was called. And it was smaller, but it had some pretty good stuff in it. That had a movie house, a theater, had an air conditioning place that they just sold air conditioning. I thought was pretty important over there. But Robinson's, SM, and Gasano's, from my experience, are the three biggest.
Do they have in the supermarkets? The food places. Do they have American food inside the supermarkets, like Butterfinger, Coke, Pepsi, all that stuff?
Um, I'll throw this in and then I'll answer your question. But my wife went to Saudi Arabia back in '87. She was a Coke person. Now she's a Pepsi person now because it's sweeter. And when she was in Saudi Arabia, she drank Pepsi. But she was used to Coke because Coke was what was in the Philippines. It was bottled at the time in '87. When she went back in 90, 92, 91, 91, they had Pepsi and Coke. So they had other stuff, which they didn't have originally. When my daughter in 2015 went to the Philippines, she went actually had a pretty good time because she would go to some of these stores that were there and they would have some of the most basic stuff. And I'll give you an example, ranch. My daughter loves ranch, dip. And so she had to have ranch. So 2 or 3 times I actually shipped her ranch. I just put some other stuff in the box, but ranch had to be in the box. So I go to Walmart and I get these little containers of ranch and I put them in and I ship it out. It cost me about $200. Now I like DHL because the first one we shipped was through the post office and it goes to New Jersey and then New Jersey sends it to the Philippines, Manila. It took 3 months to get there. DHL, it takes 7 to 10 days. And you pay for that. It was $250. But I shipped her early on 3 or 4 packages, and every one of these packages had ranch because she couldn't find ranch to save her life, and she had to have ranch. And so I shipped it to her. But after around a year, some grocery stores started popping up that had more American food. Another thing that she found was milk. And you don't think, well, milk, no big deal, right? Well, over there, it's a little bit different. There's I did research on this. There's certain ways to pasteurize milk. And over there, they heat it up so hot that it kills everything, including the taste bacteria. It tasted real, and my daughter's yucky, but they could put it in one of these packages and you wouldn't have to refrigerate it. Okay? If you pasteurize it at like 300 degrees or whatever it was. I think we only pasteurize it at 160 or 170, but it keeps a lot of the taste, but also keeps some of the bacteria, that they kill. And so they had American milk, but only after around a year and a half. The first year and a half, she could only find this highly pasteurized milk, and it just didn't taste very good. It certainly was not what she was used to. And so, but after around a year and a half, some supermarkets started popping up, and they had American food. So if she had gone 10 years ago, she'd never been able to, get milk, ranch. But after around a year and a half, um, yeah, people started popping up, these supermarkets, and she's able to get. And I went to them when I was there just a couple of years ago. Yeah, they had a lot of American foods, or it was packaged. I remember California milk, I think, is what they named one of their milk, and so even if it wasn't made in America, it was had that American marketing, uh, you know. So anyway, that's the food there is actually right now pretty good, real comfortable. If you really want what you want and you want American food, you can get to it. Now it's more expensive than the regular food. My daughter bought so much from, say, SM, some supermarket SM, that they gave her some kind of pass to get to the VIP room because she'd go and she'd buy 5,000-6,000 pesos at a time, and uh, she bought so much that they let her have access to the VIP room, where all the heavy hitters, they let all these people that spend a lot of money, and so they were part of that group. And so she, whenever she wanted to, she'd go in there and have coffee for her, place to rest, because she spent so much money in that supermarket. But the food is getting closer and closer to America all the time.
How about water? Like, can you drink the water there, or do you need to buy a bottle of water all the time?
Well, that's a good question. The answer is no. Don't drink the water coming out of it's not treated, and the pipes are old, and they don't keep them up. So, and here's a caveat. If you buy water, that's good. Buy it bottled. Make sure that the seal has not been broken. There's been numerous cases where uh, someone will get the old plastic bottles and they put water in it, tighten it up, but not seal it, sell it as new, or at least and get the full price, or at least pretty close to full price. And of course, you're buying something that's tainted. So make sure that the water you buy is from the supermarket, and make sure that it's still bottled and it's still safe. There's what she finally did. She'd always bring these cases of bottled water, just from the supermarket, and that's okay. That she never had a problem. She never really got sick. She got under the weather once or twice, and was thinking, because one of the things you don't really realize, she'd go out and she might get a Coke or a pop, a Pepsi, and then have ice in there. Well, a lot of times the ice they make the ice from is from regular water. Well, that kind of defeats the purpose, right? So she gets sick every now. But just make sure that you drink bottled water from a reputable source. And I think at the end, that last year and a half she was there, she actually had one of these containers that she set up in the kitchen, actually the dining room there, and it was the big bottles, where you turn them over and you put them in the stand, and then you can get the water. And she actually had that, and that worked out real well, and it was good, clean water. So yeah, you watch that, because it's maybe not as bad as Mexico, Montezuma's Revenge, but you have to watch it.
So it's like Culligan here, basically, right? Where they
The one that yes, exactly right. Hey, Culligan, man, But she did that. That worked out real well. And my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, would make sure that it came and it was clean and it was on time, and that worked out real well.
That's nice. So that's good. Water's good. Hits all the points there because that's really important.
They don't treat the water, the tap water, and even if they did, the lines are so old. A lot of times, I turn it on and it'd be brown, because this was not clean. So don't drink the tap water.
Kind of what you're talking about is similar to the experience I had in India. When I lived in India, I had to put rags with cotton over the
filter the water.
To filter the water.
Oh my goodness!
Just for showering, right? And I drank bottled water, of course, but for showering, I needed to put that there. And it was a newer building, sort of, but they probably use older pipes and things like that. So yeah, I understand what you're saying on that deal.
Now let me tell you this. This is another thing we did. Speaking of showering, so and I don't know why it took us so long, but she was there 4.5 years. I got there 2015, October 4th, left June. I think she arrived in country. I'm sorry, July 2nd. Now around a year and a half ago maybe, she was tired of cold showers. What they do was they'd shower, they'd kind of rinse off and then soap up and then rinse again, get underneath. It was cold, very, very, very cold. So I don't know why it took us 3 years, but it cost around 15,000 pesos, $300. And then we had some guy put it in, which was not included, but it wasn't that bad. And of course, over in the Philippines, like most of these foreign countries, our outlets here are 120. Over there, it's 240. And so you get a lot more bang for the buck. We put in a hot water, tankless hot water heater just for the shower. Everything else, she could, it was no problem. She got so tired of cold showers. And so with my experience, it was 15,000 peso, $300. And it was adjustable. It was actually a pretty good one. When my daughter moved out, my sister-in-law actually commandeered it and took it and put it in her apartment, in the building down the road that the owner owns both my daughter's apartment building and this other building. And my sister-in-law, she worked for this lady who lives down in Los Angeles. But she commandeered it and she put it in her shower. So if you ever do go to the Philippines, and most hotels, Boracay comes to mind. We were in Boracay for a few days, a few years ago, visiting my daughter, and they had a tankless hot water heater. And you get these tankless for the whole house, or like a shower here, a shower there, or a bathroom or a kitchen. And so they had these tankless. So that's what they had. I've never seen a 40-gallon or a 55-gallon hot water heater. They're not real efficient. We have them over here, but they're not real efficient because they keep this water heated 24 hours a day. Everybody over there is these tankless hot water heaters, and my daughter raves about it because it was so good. She never had any problem with it, and she had hot showers for a year and a half. Why we waited so long, 3 years, I don't know. We just had other things to pay for. But if you move over there, my advice, put in one of these tankless hot water heaters, well worth the money.
Sounds like a nice way to go. Yeah, I was wondering about how the showers as well, how the shower works.
Yeah, I'm an old guy. I'm 59 years old. I graduated high school in '79. Told you guys earlier, but I don't mind a hot shower. I don't mind it being hot. It just can't be cold. When I visited over there in 99, 96 or 99, we took a vacation. I think it's 99. We took a vacation over there, my wife and I and my daughter. So we go down to Iligan City. And there's two things I remember. Something else popped in my head. The cold shower. I just couldn't take it. So we'd put the cold water in one of these garbage containers. I went out and got this filament that you can plug in and kind of put it in the container. And after 4 or 5 minutes, it's heated that water, the top water anyway, hot enough where at least you didn't have to take a cold shower. I don't mind it being hot. I don't care about being hot. It just can't be cold. Lukewarm is fine. It just can't be cold. But that's what I had to do, 20 something years ago to take a shower because I just couldn't stand it. Oh, the other thing was my in-laws had wooden furniture, and after a while, so I went out and paid $300 for furniture, just a sofa and a love seat. Put it in the living room. That was soft. So when I sat there, my behind didn't get so sore sitting on that hard wood. That's another thing I bought for them. I forgot about that. Amazing what you remember from years ago.
So the houses are similar like they are here, where they have the curtains and the screens and everything like that. It's the same?
Screens usually not. But the construction, of course, is completely different. Everything over there is, if it's not bamboo, which is kind of the cheap, or a nipa hut, nipa being the nipa is a plant over there. When you say a nipa hut, which is kind of the traditional housing, a nipa hut is the nipa is the bush that you put on top, and it dries out, but it doesn't shrink. And so it lasts for years. Eventually you have to replace it. But that's the reference. So a nipa hut is a hut, and usually it's bamboo. Sometimes it's hollow core blocks. But most of the time, the old traditional is the bamboo with the nipa on top. Every few years, they have to replace the nipa. I know this because a few months ago, I bought a farm over there, and it produces nipa, the nipa plant. We were having a problem, people stealing at night, because poor people that usually owns these nipa huts because they can't afford a nicer newer house is poor people, so they steal my nipa plants and fix up their house. Most people over there own, as I've noticed, most people in the equator or close to the equator have these hollow blocks. That's what they build with, and so most of the construction, the houses are hollow blocking, and the good construction is usually you put these hollow blocks together, you mortar them together, and you put rebar in the middle, and then you cement. After you get high up, you put the rebar, you put the cement, and that makes a pretty sturdy house. And then you put the roof on top. Usually it's not nipa. If you have that much money, usually it's metal. The old style is that corrugated metal, that wavy corrugated metal. That's the old style. But they have the newer style with different colors now. And most of the richer people, that's what they have. But most of the construction now, it's not wood, it's not bamboo, because that doesn't last as long. It's usually the hollow block construction for the houses or the building. If you look at the buildings, they go up several stories. It's this hollow block construction. And I always wonder, the Philippines is in a earthquake zone. And I just wonder, how safe that is, because one good thing about bamboo, it bends, but it doesn't break, right? They'll bend and bend, and if it falls on you, it won't kill you. Hollow block, the heavier construction, the heavier roofs, they fall on you, they're more likely to kill you. And they really haven't had a major earthquake in a few years. At 78 or 79, my wife was telling me they were living in this nipa hut, and they had an earthquake. I looked it up. I'll say like 7.8, 7.7, something like that. It's been years since I looked it up. But she said, what I remember is the refrigerator walked across the floor because it was shaking, and it was a bamboo nipa hut, but they had a refrigerator, smaller one, but that earthquake is moving so much that refrigerator, that icebox, moved across the floor. And she kept saying, yeah, walked across the floor. I saw it walking across the floor. So that worries me about these hollow block construction, though, because it could break and fall on you and kill you versus the bamboo, which is lighter.
This nipa hut you're talking about, is that what's it like? Does it have, like, you see some of the TV shows, like Magnum PI, and it'll have like,
Yeah,
or
Hawaii.
some Hawaii 50, the latest one, the newest one. And is it like that? The kind of like how it looks, and it's near a beach, and it has a little dome thing, or like an
That's
office
it.
space. It's like that. Okay.
Yeah, and it's bamboo construction. You know, it got these steps that you can go up. But there's no, when I was there, we had windows, but you didn't have the nets, the mosquito nets. Now you did on your bed. Usually there's one on the bed, keep the mosquitoes out. But I tell you, when I get over there, I buy, you know, we might fix up my wife's house, but I'm looking at maybe buying in the middle of the country. Gotta have, gotta have the, you know, the the net, you know, outside the window, and so they can't even get into the house. Um, Otherwise, they'll get in the house and they'll sting you and they'll suck out your blood. And there's a lot of diseases that are floating around that are transmitted by the mosquitoes. You guys have malaria, yellow fever, Japanese encephalitis is a big one. Luckily, not near Ilo, but they do have outbreaks on it, of course. And then that Zika, you know, even other places. So, yeah, you have to be really worried about the mosquitoes. Um, but usually there's no nets, there's no screening in windows, except for maybe the rich people, but not the poor people.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wow. I don't know what I'd do without a net here in the States. You know, what kind of screen, a screen on the window? Got to have it. I don't know how.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think anybody would buy a house in the States if it didn't have a screen on the windows. They'd say, like, well, what is that? You know, they probably wouldn't even buy it.
That's right. That's right. But over there, Susan's house it doesn't have screens. Uh, and that was one of the things I needed to fix if I ever moved back to that house.
So tell me about you. What's your plan on the Philippines? Are you going to start a business, go to school? What's your plan for that?
I'd like to teach. You know, we talked about um, earlier the online classes that I'm taking. Real happy with them. They're teaching me some things. I might not be learning as much as I could be learning here in a master or doctorate program, but as long as I'm learning, I'm happy and I am learning. But I'd like to teach over there. I'd like to maybe work for another year or so and then teach and then over there. Hoping someone will hire me. I'll be a foreigner. Hope I can get a work with some few challenges. Otherwise, I might just go to my farm. I got a little half a hectare, acre and a half farm over there that we're going to plant. We're raising Nipa, the Nipa plant right now, but it got a lot of water. And you know, we're going to put mango, pineapples, and coconut trees, and maybe build a house there. Maybe buy one in town, or if I get a job teaching somewhere else. But you know, that'd be my way of giving back. IT's been good to me. I've been doing it for 35 years. I've gone, you know, one thing about IT, it's technical and seems like everybody needs what you have to offer. And I've worked in New York City for 2 years, San Antonio, Saudi Arabia for 2 years. I lived in 12 states, New York, Texas, Kansas for Sprint PCS, Colorado Springs, Seattle, Washington for a few years, and California, Virginia, and it's been really good to me to see you know the world and kind of overcome my wanderlust. So the Philippines is going to be maybe the next step. Do some teaching, kind of give something back.
Do you have the skills right now necessary to teach in the Philippines? What type of skills do you need? I mean,
Yeah,
to teach?
probably. I actually sent my resume off to wasn't the University of Philippines, but it was another. There's like 10 or 15 universities that kind of top. And the one I'm taking, my doctorate program, is kind of the bottom of that 15, probably 10 to 15 somewhere. But you have University of Philippines, Santo Tomas, and there's another one that escapes my mind right now. But that's the one I sent my resume to, and he said, "Well, you could teach right now if you wanted to. You could. There'd be no problem. Someone would snap you up." Because it just seemed like the people that can do stuff over there, they can make more money somewhere else, so they leave. I've had 2 or 3 acquaintances that were educated there. I had a good friend named Roland that I met in Saudi Arabia, and he was a VMware as a VCP, and but he couldn't make any money in the Philippines. He'd go to the Philippines maybe every 4 or 5 years, for maybe a year or two, and then he just can't make any money. The salaries are so poor. He'd go back to the Middle East, and so anybody with any kind of skill set at all usually is not there. They're somewhere else making more money.
Is he born in that country? I guess I assume.
Yeah, Roland was born in Manila, and I knew him for 2 years in Saudi Arabia, and I keep up with him. I'm the godfather of one of his daughters, and so I'd call him every now and then, and but he would he just couldn't make any money. So every now and then, he's retired now, but he's still working. He's working as a travel agent, something a little bit less stressful, but he's still working. And over there, when I get over there, I don't like my Social Security, my wife's Social Security. I have some houses here and there. We got some money saved up. I shouldn't have to work, only if I want to. But you have to do something in life. You just can't do nothing. And so mine will be teaching and giving something back. Because IT's been good to me. Let me see a lot of the world.
Agreed with the IT part.
You're the same way. That's right. You've been to a lot of places, almost probably as many as I have, because you have a certain skill set that people need all over the world.
Yeah, that's what IT has done for me as well.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yes.
So Terry, how can people reach out to you if they have any questions or they want to know how do Terry, can you teach me some things? How would they reach out to you so they can contact you? You have a Twitter or a Facebook or anything like that, or a website that people can reach out to you?
I got a Facebook account, and that'd probably be the best. They can reach me through you. So, I work a lot. So, but if anybody needs any advice or Facebook probably the best. Message me on Facebook and I'll respond.
Okay, cool. So Terry, really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Hey, Gary?
Yes.
Enjoyed the heck out of this. I've actually thought about it and wrote down some stuff, and what's he going to ask me, and I'm going to be on the hot seat. But I've actually thought about stuff that I had thought about in decades, especially way back in the early 90s. Met my wife in Saudi Arabia, so that's actually a good refresher course. So I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Very welcome. Very welcome.